The focus of this video is how to use the embedded assessment rubrics and answer keys to evaluate student responses. Before going into details of the rubric, we will first review several features of MyStar embedded assessments. Embedded assessments are designed to allow teachers to evaluate students' ability to integrate three-dimensional knowledge, skills, and abilities, a new context, or in a novel way. This is a different type of assessment than teachers have traditionally used and is intended to provide teachers with a holistic picture of student understanding. There are 1 or 2 embedded assessments per unit. MyStar rubrics and answer keys have been designed with three-dimensional assessment in mind and are intended to assist teachers in evaluating student responses to reflect the goals of NGSS assessments. These rubrics are meant to be used as guides to help teachers evaluate where students currently are within a trajectory of increasingly sophisticated application of the three dimensions. Each embedded assessment includes instructions for teachers on the scope and intent of the assessment activity, an exemplar student response, and also an answer key or rubric. The teacher instruction document can be accessed through a link provided in the Check Your Progress phase of those lessons with embedded assessments. The rubric or answer key is included in the teacher instruction document. MyStar embedded assessments are narrow in terms of the scope of the assessment and are generally limited to the evaluation of student proficiency with a single DCI, SEP, or CCC. The specific dimensions used in the assessment are typically selected from the primary NGSS performance expectations assigned to the unit. The targeted dimensions may come entirely from a single performance expectation or represent dimensions chosen from several different performance expectations. The content covered in the assessment is typically only the DCIs covered in the associated lesson. Therefore, not all the core ideas that students have learned in the previous lessons within the unit will be formally assessed. However, within each of MyStar's instructional phases, there are multiple opportunities for both formative and summative assessments. The rubrics that are paired with the embedded assessments are intended as an aid in evaluating students' proficiency at being able to use the multiple NGSS dimensions in an integrated way in order to make sense of the phenomena or solve the problem that is presented in the assessment activity. Every rubric has 9 levels. These levels are numbered 0 to 4 with half-point increments. Levels 2, 3, and 4 include a description of the specific features of a student's response that could be expected at that level. Next, we'll take a look at the format of the rubrics. The focus here is not on the detail of the text contained in the rubric, but instead on the general layout of the rubric. All rubrics for the embedded assessments will follow this same layout. Later in this session, you'll have an opportunity to practice using this rubric. This means you'll get the chance to read and work through a rubric in detail using actual student responses. Upper levels of the rubric require students to show some level of knowledge or ability with all three dimensions so that students' proficiency can be evaluated in a holistic manner. Lower levels may only require evidence of knowledge or abilities related to 1 or 2 dimensions, or show only minor evidence of competence with regard to some dimensions of the PE. Here we zoom in on just the top level of the rubric, level 4. The 4 level is the proficiency target and describes all of the required evidence of student learning elicited by the activity to show full competence with the targeted PE components. In practice, teachers should not expect that all students will reach level 4. This is especially true for students with no prior exposure to NGSS-aligned instruction and assessment. Within levels 4, 3, and 2, there is a bolded statement which provides an overview of the knowledge, skills, and abilities a student may demonstrate at that level. Directly beneath the bold statement are bullet points with additional information to clarify and further explain the bold overview statement. These bullet points are intended to be used as a guide to what a teacher might expect to see from a student at each level and are not intended to be used by teachers as a checklist to be applied to each and every student response. One final helpful feature of the rubrics to note in this example: The text that is underlined signals what features separate this level from the level immediately below it. In this example, a 4.0 answer response should use specific evidence from the text and explain changes in population. A 3.0 answer would not include these features. Lower levels are defined based on the assessment developer's perspective on the complexity of the required student performance and a plausible student learning trajectory. These decisions are based upon the complexity of the targeted PE components, the activity itself, and expectations of students at that grade level. Level 1 is usually defined as students who need individual assistance in order to be successful at parts of the performance outlined for levels 2 and 3. The rubrics are an aid for teachers to help them interpret their students' responses on the embedded assessments. The choice of how to use these embedded assessment activities and rubrics, or answer keys, for student assessment is at the discretion of the teacher. A teacher may choose to assess all or only part of the activity, and/or weigh individual parts of the activity more heavily than other parts, etc. The student expectations at these levels in the rubric can be modified by the teacher to better reflect expectations for his or her students or needs of the classroom. For example, the features that are suggested by assessment developers to separate a 4 level from a 3 may be changed or adapted to better fit the knowledge and skills of a given class. At the teacher's discretion, intermediate scores between any of the 9 levels can be assigned. In addition, levels above 4 could be added if a teacher feels that some of his or her students will likely be able to go above and beyond what is required in level 4. The choice of whether to assign a grade or what grade to assign to a level is a teacher decision. In this box, we show 2 possible models for converting levels to grades. On the left side is an unequal interval grading scheme, where levels 2.5 to 4 are all A's. On the right is an equal interval grading scheme where 3 and above is an A. These are only 2 possible models. Teachers might choose to use a different model for converting levels to grades, and may also adjust the scale they use based on the difficulty of the assessment. In this video, we have given an overview on using rubrics to help teachers assess their students' performance on the embedded assessments. There will be a rubric or answer key provided for each embedded assessment, and teachers can use the rubric to help assess their students' three-dimensional learning. These rubrics and answer keys are intended to be aids for teachers, but they do not have to be rigidly followed. Teachers may choose to adjust their expectations and their grading scheme based on the difficulty of the assessment and their students' current level of performance. Additional information on the rubrics and answer keys is available in the Embedded Assessment Guide document. Your facilitator can show you where to find the guide documents.